Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Sporting Heritage Income Diversification webinar. Just a few quick introductions before we start, and then I shall hand over to Joe. So obviously our session this morning is being led by Joe Boardman, and we're very lucky to have Caroline Sampson here with us this morning from the National Archives. While the main part of the presentation is going on, I'm going to turn my camera off, but I will be there in the background and be monitoring the chat, which Joe will talk a little bit more about in a moment. And the same with Caroline, she will come in for her guest slot and then disappear again. Right, Joe, I shall hand over to you. Caroline, if you and I turn our cameras off, and Joe can make a start.
Great stuff. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Just so you know, this is going to be very much a whistle-stop tour on income diversification. It's very condensed, but I hope you are going to find it useful. I'm not going to be able to show you where the funding money tree is. I wish I could, and I say that to everybody, but hopefully I'm going to provide you with some useful top tips and signposting ideas that you can take back to your organisations about different types of income, different types of funding and fundraising that you can look at moving forward into 2021. So let me start sharing my screen. And fingers crossed, we will be able to start. Right, so the first part of the agenda is going to be quite intensive. And just to warn you, I'm going to be talking quite quickly, but I'm going to try and get through as much as I can this morning. So we'll do an introduction and I'll do some housekeeping. We'll talk about the different types of funding and fundraising from asking to earning, the pros and cons, what do you need? So what do you need your money for? And the do's and don'ts around fundraising, some current and future funding opportunities, which will also include some information from Caroline at the National Archives, and a very, very small quiz. And it's not anything massive, so don't worry about it. The second half of the session, I'm going to be talking about pitching. So that could be pitching to investors, it could be pitching to sponsors, it could be even pitching or talking to grant funders as well. I'm then going to talk a little bit about crowdfunding, because obviously there's been a lot of crowdfunding happening over COVID. I'm going to do a couple of case studies, then I'm going to give you some general information about funding and fundraising, and lots and lots of useful information and support. And hopefully at the end, we will have some time for Q&As. What we are planning to do as well after this session, because this is a whistle-stop tour, is in the new year, we're hoping to do some more detailed income diversification sessions on different areas. So if you would, please fill out the evaluation form that's going to get sent out to you, because in there will be questions about, would you like a session on writing a great grant application, sponsorship of corporate social responsibility, social investment, online donations and crowdfunding. So please fill that out, because we can then do some more detailed sessions in the new year for you. Right, so I'm going to do some quick housekeeping. We are recording, as you've seen. So one thing that I would say to everybody is, you don't need to scribble everything down today, because all these slides and the notes that are accompanying these slides, and there are a lot of them, I'm going to be PDFing and sending through to Fran so that Fran can send them on to you. So what I want you to do today is to listen, and also please, please, please use the chat function to talk to each other. So if you've done something that you think was really useful, or you think it might help somebody, or if you know a funder that you think might be useful, please put it up. And if you want to share your contact details, do as well. If you've got questions, please put your questions in the chat box, and we will try and go through all the questions during the session, and obviously try and have a Q&A at the end. We're going to have a break halfway through, so that probably more so for myself, so I can go and get myself another cuppa, because I'm sure you can go and get yourself a drink during the session. But also it'll help us to just break things up a little bit. If you've got any questions, or if you want to share any thoughts or views on social media, please use those hashtags there. So Sporting Heritage at Sporting History on Twitter, or myself at Joe Boardman. And then obviously there's a LinkedIn information and Facebook and Instagram information for Sporting Heritage as well. As I say, we're going to try and have a Q&A session at the end. but we will pick things up during the session. So this is me. So a little bit about me. I've been working in the sector for over 20 years now, 10 years as a freelance consultant, predominantly doing organisational change and support and income diversification. Anything from business planning to governance to income diversification, fundraising strategies, bid writing, partnership development, business engagement, and corporate social responsibility and sponsorship. These are just a few of my current clients at the moment. And I will say that during lockdown, I've been doing quite a bit of support around recovery. So the one thing that you will see throughout this whole session is that even though this is about talking about COVID and sustainability, it's pretty much the information. It doesn't matter whether we're going through lockdown or not, pretty much the basics and the foundations are the same. The only thing that I would say with regards to things like grant funders as well as investors is that you might have to do a little bit more work now, because once open programs start getting back on track again in 2021 and at the tail end of this year, competition is going to be extremely fierce. So a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today will relate to that. So the first one is from asking to earning. This is really just to find out whether you know what is out there with regards to funding and fundraising. And I'll just apologise. You may see my dog walking around as I'm going through the session today, so I do apologise for that. So when we're talking about asking to earning, there are usually about 4 or 5 different columns of funding or investment that we would look at. And it's getting harder and harder to secure different types of investment without having the right foundations in place. So I'm going to talk about each of these columns as we go along. I'm not going to talk about COVID specific funding purely because emergency funding and recovery funding has been slightly different. It was a slightly different ball game for us all, for those that did access it, because it was more around supporting your core organisation, your operational costs, your staffing costs, and looking at that internal resilience. So what I'm going to talk about is generally, when we're back in the new normal, the sort of funding that would be available and the sort of things that you need to consider. So if we start from the left, gift and philanthropy. So really that can be anything from individual donors to high wealth philanthropists or donors. That could be sponsorship from private investors. It could be friends of groups. It could be community events, community fundraising. Those individuals that are sympathetic to your cause. And also look at where you can source different investors and supporters and think about how you can retain those supporters and investors. The one thing that lots of organisations don't realise is that you've got a fantastic internal network already, and you've got lots of people that are involved in your organisation that have got huge networks and contacts. So make sure that you look internally when you be thinking about donors and investors. Look at who you've got already within your organisation that's working with you, supporting you, or volunteering with you. Because if you start from that and work from that base, you've already got a friendly audience to actually practice and talk to them about investing and donating and getting involved with your organisation. When you're thinking about donors, think about what it is that you want them to get involved in and donate to, whether it's a specific project, campaign, or event. Also think about whether you want to have a specific club. Some organisations I know set up specific clubs for donors. For example, a 100 club or a 1000 club, where they pay a certain amount per year and then come together to look at where their money is being invested, and organisations showcase that. There are quite a few organisations that do that as an offer. So basically it's passive income that comes in every year. The one thing that I will say, and I'll be saying this throughout this whole session, is make sure that you value your donors, value your relationships, appreciate the contribution they make and recognise the support that they're giving you. Because that helps to encourage new investment as well, because when you've got existing donors and supporters, what they do is they advocate on your behalf and become your ambassadors, and they will go out and tell people what you're doing, how fantastic you are, and how they're involved with you, and that in turn perpetuates this wider audience and wider community that gets involved. So make your existing donors feel special and use them as your unofficial advocates. The other thing I would say as well, with regards to all of this, but specifically on the gifts and donations as well, is how many of you use social media to interact with individuals and organisations, or to find out about individuals and organisations? Because I use social media massively to find out about individuals, organisations, businesses, what their job roles are. I use LinkedIn so much, to find out about different individuals within businesses if I'm wanting to approach that business for support, because it gives you an opportunity to find out about them, find out about their career, their likes, their values, and actually gives you an opportunity to contact them socially before you actually get in touch with them physically on the phone or have a meeting, when we're all allowed to have meetings again. And that's really useful when you're looking at developing your case for support, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I also use LinkedIn to get free stuff. So I go on LinkedIn, and I've got LinkedIn groups that I'm involved in. One of the biggest ones that I'm involved in is a group in Yorkshire called the Yorkshire Mafia, which is a business networking group. Some of you may have heard me talk about them before. They're quite an active group, and there are 23,761 members on that group, all from different areas across the north, businesses, charities, and it's a fantastic platform for people to share ideas and best practice. So moving swiftly on then to grants and funders. So I'm going to be talking about this in more detail with regards to bid writing. There is a lot out there, but what you can access is dependent upon your legal structure, the size of your organisation, how much money you have in your reserves or in your bank account, and what you want the money for. And also the evidence that you've got to back up what it is that you're wanting to apply for. I know it's difficult at the moment because of COVID, things have changed. A lot of funders have been looking at recovery funds and not been opening their programs, but it gives us an opportunity now to think about what is it that we would want grant funding for. So when you're looking at grant funding, think about what it is that you want the money for, why you want it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on the case for support. But you have to be very, very clear about what it is that you want the money for. And also remember that grant funding is time limited, and it is pretty much project based. You can't get grant funding just to, other than recovery funding, just to do core costs. It's pretty much project based. Funders out there, I'm sure you've all heard about all the different lottery funders, the Arts Council, Heritage Fund, Sport England, Community Fund. There are lots of trusts and foundations out there like Esme Fairburn, Foyle Foundation. There are loads out there. And actually your local community foundation will be able to provide you with information about local funders in your area. And again, we'll have information about that at the end of the session. And there are organisations like the National Archives, Collections Trust, Arts Humanities Research Council, lots of different organisations. And again, I will talk about where you can find out about these different organisations. So that's grants. I'm not going to talk too much about that other than I already have. And then I'll go through the case for support and also talk about writing bids, because that'll give you more information with regards to grants and grant funding. Loans and investments. I don't know how many of you have accessed social investment, but it's usually seen as a bit of a last brick in the financial jigsaw. So if you're going for a big capital project and you're struggling to get the last 15 or 20% of the funding, then some organisations will go for social investment. Social investment's been a difficult one because people like grants because they see it as easy money and money they don't have to pay back, whereas social investment is money that you have to pay back. It's like you and I would do when we get a mortgage, or we pay our rent, or we buy a car. It's money we have to pay for, and we have to pay it back. We don't just get it free gratis. But the good thing about social investment that's happened over the recent years is that because you have to go through quite a rigorous due diligence process when you get social investment from an investor, they check all your financials to make sure that they're fit for purpose and that you're robust. This is now seen as a good thing by many funders, and quite a lot of lottery funders now are starting to look at social investment and are starting to dip their toe in the waters. Arts Council have done it with the Arts Impact Fund. Heritage Fund have done it with the Heritage Impact Fund through Architectural Heritage Fund. Community Fund have been doing it for quite a while. So what they're now doing is they're not only providing grants, but they're also looking at social investment, because they see it as a way to get organisations to think of wider income opportunities and not just grant based, but also it makes their money go further. They get a bigger bang for their buck. So social investment, the difference between social investment and grants is actually pretty much, unless the social investor has specific criteria on what you can spend the money on, which is usually quite wide, you can spend it on what you want, because it's loan finance. As long as you can pay it back, that pretty much, whether it's a commercial investor like your bank, or whether it's a social investor like Key Fund or Charity Bank or Unity Trust or the Architectural Heritage Fund, they will allow you to spend it on whatever you want, and they will give you different terms for paying it back. They may give you repayment holidays, and they are willing to negotiate as well. So if you're having issues or troubles, like with COVID, a lot of people have been struggling. So I know a lot of organisations have holiday breaks on social investment, but it's a useful one to consider. Don't dismiss it. If you are looking at a big capital project in 2021, think about whether social investment will enable you to achieve that big project, because things are going to get more and more competitive. And there are more options there for heritage organisations with regards to social investment, because more people are getting involved. Quickly skimming over contracts. So some of you may have had contracts through your local authorities. They've gone from being grant-based to looking at contracts. That means that you basically tell them what it is that you are willing to do for the project that they've got. You give them a cost based on what it is you think you can achieve within that budget, and you then sign a contract that says you are going to deliver this many outputs and outcomes and targets for this amount of money. Now, if it's a proper bona fide contract, if you make any surplus or profit from that contract, then you should be allowed to keep it, because you've signed a contract that states you will provide a service or activity or product for this amount of money. So if you make any surplus from that, then that's yours. But we don't live in a perfect world. So quite a few local authorities do service level agreements. So if there is any surplus or profit, it gets either reinvested back in the actual project that you're doing, or it'll go back to the local authority that you're working with. But the aim of the contract is to try and get you to think a little bit more commercially about the fact that if you are signing up to saying that you are going to deliver something, you will deliver it on time, in a timely fashion, and you will achieve all the outputs, the outcomes, and the targets that they've asked you to achieve. If you don't, they could take that money back off you. So that's the difference between contracts and grants. Grants, the funder wants you to have that money. Even if you have problems, the funder will want you to keep that money as long as you can. Work with them to try and look at how you can repurpose some of the money if there's any issues. They want you to have that money, otherwise you wouldn't be successful in the first place. With a contractor, if you've signed a contract and you've not delivered, then they may ask for all of that money back so that they can then commission somebody else to deliver it. So just bear that in mind, because I have known quite a few organisations sign up for a contract but done it on the basis that they're going to have volunteers delivering. And when volunteers drop off, they then had to pay people to deliver, which has meant they've gone into a deficit. So think about that. And the final one on this chart is open market, which is trading. So that's you selling products, services, activity, event space, venue hire, could be intellectual property that you've got. It could be yourself, your skill, your knowledge, your expertise. The one thing that I would say about that is make sure that you are costing that out appropriately. Because if you don't get your budget right, and if you're not costing it out appropriately, then you're going to make a loss and you're going to be in deficit. So unless you're doing something where you're doing it as a loss leader to try and engage with a wider audience, make sure you cost appropriately to cover everything from your own costs, your utilities, your staffing costs, your marketing costs. so that when you've got that final product and you've got a cost attached to it, you're going to get some surplus profit margin there that you can then reinvest back into unrestricted funds. So do think about that when you're looking at trading. Make sure that everything, when you're doing your trading, make sure that you have reviewed and costed out appropriately for anything that you're selling, also whether it's venues or services, activities or workshops. The final one that I'm going to talk about quickly, and it's not on here, is crowdfunding. So we're going to talk about that in the second part of this session. So that is generally the different types of funding that you are going to see that will become part of, hopefully, your mixed income portfolio within your organisation. Because to quote a bit of a cliche, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So if you can get different types of funding and finance investment into your organisation, it means that you're not going to be heavily reliant on one. So that actually, if you do lose one income stream, then actually it's not going to have too much of a detrimental impact. But we all know that that's a perfect world. So this is just some of the pros and cons. And again, I'm not going to go through these in too much detail, but just so you know, you are going to get this sheet at the end of the session. So it talks about, again, the individual giving, gift economy, the pros and cons about that's unrestricted funding. That's the pro. A con is that you might have to work really hard if it's community fundraising to secure some money. So the amount of effort that you put in is not related to the amount of money that you generate from that. It can be used for specific projects, campaigns or events. Grants and trusts, we've talked about that, seems to be low risk and limited liability. Some funders will fund 100% of the project, but a lot of them now are starting to look for match, so you need to have match. Some of that can be in kind, but sometimes they want financial match. It may fund salary costs and it might give you large sums. But also remember, when it comes to core costs, for you to have done a full cost recovery, to work out how much your full cost recovery is for the project that you're going for the grant for. That's a whole different webinar, everybody. The con when it comes to grants and trusts is it's restricted income. You can only usually spend that money on a specific project. So you can't get lots of money in and decide you want to have an away day in Barbados. That just doesn't work because you've got monitoring requirements and you've got evaluations to do. And a lot of the money is either coming from a charitable trust or foundation, or it's coming from a lottery funder, which is a national a non-departmental public body, so it's coming from the public purse. So you have to be responsible for the money that you're spending. It can be used for working on specific projects, hard to reach communities, projects that won't be self-sustaining, so they will fund that, or it could be used for pilot initiatives. I know some of the recovery funding people have used their recovery funding to do pilot initiatives. Contracts we've talked about, unrestricted funding. You can technically generate a profit if that's a bona fide contract. Unfortunately, if you fail to deliver, you may have to actually pay your money back. There could be some mission drift if you're just going for the contract because you need the money. And there may be some large and complex processes there. And it's usually to deliver public services or a public activity. Trading, again, unrestricted funding because you're selling something, whether it's a product or a service and activity, so that can go into your unrestricted funds. The question you've got to think about, or cons, is can the customer afford to pay what you're charging? Is it an unstable market? Is there competition out there, so somebody might be underselling you? And it can be for a whole range of things: training toolkits, products, services, books, crafts, arts, etc. Business and corporate, we'll be talking about making the pitch a little bit later. But with any business and corporate engagement, it's all about developing relationships. So you've got to have something that they want to support. The what's in it for me will be something that they think about. It's great to have a good relationship with businesses and corporates. You can get indirect benefits. You might get staff support, volunteer staff support. It's not a regular income unless you're doing something on a passive basis where they're paying an amount per year for a service. It might be that they're funding an event or an exhibition or a display or a collection. Can be affected by market change. We have seen during COVID, a lot of the businesses and corporates shut down for a while, just so that they could reconfigure what it was that they were doing and actually do a bit of repivoting and reprofiling of their own businesses. But they're now starting to come out of it. And also as well, it can sponsor specific events or publicity material. So as long as you've got that good relationship, you can do lots of things. And loan and debt finance, it can be your bridging finance, your last gap finance, but you need to pay it back. And it can fund the unfundable. So that's a very, very quick step through all of that. So what is it that you need? So during lockdown, I know some of us have had a little bit more time to plan and think and review and revise and adapt. And moving forward, you need to be extremely clear and focused about what it is that you require funding for. And you need to be able to evidence the need for what it is that you want to do, now more so than ever. As I said earlier, the competition is going to be fierce next year when it comes to grants. You need to be able to show best value for money, and you need to also look at collaborating with others. It's getting more and more prevalent now, collaboration and partnership working, and funders like to see that because it's best value for money for them. It means they get a bigger bang for their buck, and it means they're getting more organisations working together and sharing best practice. And you also need to be able to measure the impact that you're having on your visitors, your audiences, your customers, your clients, and the wider communities. So not just, so it's the qualitative and the quantitative. So not just the bums on seats, the numbers through the doors, but actually how your project has enhanced, increased, improved, and made a difference to those involved. So those that you're there to benefit. So what do you need to do? The first thing that you need to do is you need to find the funding. So I'm sure quite a few of you are use search engines and get e-bulletins and get funding updates. But what would be useful today as well is if you are using specific search engines, can you put them in the chat function and let everybody else know about it? I'm just looking now. So let me just take that back to see whether there are any chat. So I'm just having a quick look now. So yeah, so if you put some stuff in the chat function, let everybody know about what it is that you use, your funding search engine, that would be really, really useful. I've just quickly been looking at the chat there just to see what everybody's doing. If the funding search engines are free, brilliant. If it's a paid for service and you're happy to share, even better. Don't forget though that Sporting Heritage has got its own personalised funding search engine, courtesy of Community Matters Yorkshire, but I use loads of different mechanisms to find out about funding. Mentioned about Twitter before. Twitter's been my saviour over lockdown because I follow so many funders on Twitter, and not just follow them, but I also click their all tweets. But only because I find out about funding straight away because they put it on their social media feeds before they usually send it out on their e-shots. So for me, social media has been very good. So if you have got that on your smartphone or a tablet or whatever, it is useful to have if you want to follow specific funders. I also get different e-shots from different colleagues and partner organisations. So for example, I get Google alerts about funding, which I've set up. I get lottery funding e-shots from all the different lottery funders. I also access organisations like my local Council for Voluntary Service or my local community foundation that will tell me about local funding that's coming out. I also have the National Association of Voluntary and Community Action because they have an e-shot called Links. The Heritage Alliance, the Heritage Trust Network, your local museum development networks are usually pretty good about putting funding information out in their e-shots that's relevant to the heritage sector, as is AIM and other organisations. There are loads of different opportunities out there, and I've listed some at the end of this session for you to look at if you haven't got it. Also, organisations like National Archives, so Caroline's going to be talking about what the National Archives do, and there are other search engines like Funding Central, Grants Online, Get Grants, etc. There are loads. So what I want to then say is also, once you've found your funding and you've found the funds that you're looking at, you need to then filter the different funders. So you need to check the funding criteria. So what is it that they will fund? Are you eligible? Legal structures. Think about your legal structures. Some funders won't fund, for example, community interest companies. Some funders won't fund unincorporated associations. If you're not a registered charity, they may not fund you. So think about these things when you're filtering. Also look at the timescales for the funding. There's no point applying for a fund if you need the money within a couple of months, if their timescale for you applying and you being told that you're successful is 6 months or more, or their trustees only meet two times a year and you've missed the deadline. So think about the timescales, and this will come within your case for support and your fundraising strategy. Also look at whether they'll pay capital or revenue or both. So obviously at the moment the focus is on resilience of the sector, so it's about recovery funding. There are very few open programs out. There are some, and I will talk about them later. And capital support programs have been limited capital support programs, usually by organisations like Historic England, Historic Environment Scotland, etc., Architectural Heritage Fund. But the capital support has been quite limited. It's usually been for at-risk buildings. Basically, if buildings are going to fall down during COVID lockdown, then we need to shore them up, sort of scenario. But obviously capital funding is going to start to come back in 2021. So think about what it is that you want the money for, and make sure that the proposal that you are going to do is going to be watertight, and that is where your case for support and fundraising strategy comes in. It's got to be watertight, more so than ever before. The focus then is making sure that you read the guidance. If I've got to say, one thing that my funding colleagues say to me every single time I talk to them is, please, 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 please ask your clients to read the guidance and answer the flipping questions. Because more often than not, and the funders now are brilliant at providing guidance, they'll do online guidance and offline guidance, and they'll do it in a range of different formats. Read it all. Don't just put something in without reading the guidance, because if you do, more often than not, you're going to fail. And more so now, you will, because they'll be scrutinising things. And because there's going to be so many more people now, as soon as major funds open, so many more people are going to be applying. So make sure that you're very focused about what it is that you want the money for, and you read the guidance. It sounds simple, but sometimes we all tend to forget about it because we've got too much on by doing our day job, and actually going for funding and looking at the guidance is too much of a faff, because we've got our day job to do, and we've also got to do this as an aside. But from my perspective, from now onwards and moving into the new normal, you need to be focused and need to make sure that the fund is the right one for you. And then follow. Again, throughout the whole of this, relationships are key. Whether it's a funder, whether it's an investor, whether it's a donor, your relationships are going to be key. So make sure you develop a relationship with them. You talk to a lottery fund officer or a charitable trust officer. You make sure that you keep them informed. It could be an investor or a donor. Make sure that you thank them when they invest in you, or they give you something, or they support you with something. Thank you, thank you, thank you all the time when you're doing that. And if you keep that rapport up and keep that relationship up, it will help you moving forward. Because actually, with a funder, if you've got a relationship with them and one fund finishes and one project finishes, you might be able to go back to be refunded for something else. Or if not, if they can't do it, they may actually refer you on to another funder that they know. So always keep that relationship. And if you're not successful, don't not get in touch with them to ask for feedback. I know it's been difficult recently, but ask for feedback, because again, if you don't know what it is that you've done wrong, and you might not have done anything wrong, but if you don't know what you've done wrong, how can you correct it moving forward? So make sure that you follow and you keep in touch with them. So that's quickly on what you need to do. I'm also now going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts that we need to think about, and it's now very slow. It's not allowing me to move on. Just bear with me a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Try again. There we go. Do's and don'ts. So we're going to talk about advocacy and case for support. We're going to talk about fundraising strategy very, very quickly, and then we're going to talk about successful bid writing. By successful, I don't mean it's guaranteed. I mean, what you've done is you've dotted your I's and you've crossed your T's to the best of your ability, but there is no guarantee that you're going to get the money. Bear in mind that I usually spend a day on each of these, and we are halfway, if not a little bit more, on this first session. So I am going to race through these, but as I say, you are going to get these slides and the notes that I've done. So advocacy and a case for support. So what is a case for support? A case for support is a document that's going to clearly and concisely explain why you need funding and what you plan to do with it. And the reason why, case for support can be for a whole organisation, or it can be just for a department, or it can be for a specific function, or it might be for a project or a specific activity. And if you want to have more than one case for support, then that's fine. But what I would say with case for support is make sure it's succinct. Don't have War and Peace. Have it on a couple of pages. If it's project-based and specific to a project, have it on a couple of pages of A4 or a few slides, just so that it's very, very clear what it is that you want the money for. And it's got to be understood by every audience. So you need to remove any jargon and make sure that whoever reads it understands what it is that you're wanting the money for, what the project is, or what the service is, or what the activity is that you're wanting that money for. And you'll also need to make sure that you cover why you need the funds, and what you're going to do with those funds when you get them. Why is going to be the key question in any case for support, because you need to explain why you're doing what it is that you're doing, why it's important, and why a funder or a donor should support you. So a case for support can be for anybody. It can be for a grant funder, it can be for an investor, it can be for a donor. It can also help you crystallize in your own head what it is that you're trying to develop with regards to a project or something that you're developing with your organization, and focus, going back to focus again, focus you to make sure that you understand what it is that you're looking to develop. So think about the certain areas that a case for support should contain. So need. What is the issue or the problem that you're looking to address? Why is it important? And why that particular area? Why are you doing that? If nothing was done, what difference would it make? Would it make a difference? If it doesn't make a difference, then that should tell you something about the project that you're looking to do. And how do you know there is a problem? What evidence have you got to back up that there's a need out there for that project? If you haven't got any evidence, again, going back to, we need to be extremely watertight in what it is that we're developing, then you're going to struggle to get investment or grant funding because you can't evidence that there's a need out there. Then think about the solutions. So what are you going to do to address that need as an organisation or an individual? What are the funds going to pay for? What do you need the funds to pay for? When's the project or the activity going to happen? What's the time scale? Who's going to be involved and who's going to benefit from the work? And what is it going to be? What's going to be achieved overall? So think about that for solutions, having that list. Then the impact. Again, this quantitative and qualitative. How are you going to change things? What's going to be different because of a result of your work? And how are you going to know you've achieved it? So how are you going to monitor, review and evaluate what it is that you've done to show that actually your project, your activity, your service, your event, your exhibition has had an impact on your visitors, audiences, clients or communities? And then what's the budget? Key thing, how much is this all going to cost? And what are the key areas of expenditure? So making sure you break down into those key areas of expenditure. And this links in with your fundraising strategy. Where are you planning to get the funding from to do this? Is it going to be solely grant funding? Is it going to be a mix of grant and donors that you've got? Is it going to be money that's coming from trading that you're doing? Or is it going to be grants, and it might be some social investment as well? But you need to work out how much money you want, who that money's for, what you're wanting to deliver, and where the money's going to come from. And also, again, then think about the timescales, because you might have a project that you want to start in April 2021, and you might have listed a whole range of funders, and those funders are not going to be able to make a decision in time for you to start your project in April 2021. So you need to put all this in your case of support. and added value. I've put in added value purely because everybody at the moment is looking for added value. Everybody's looking for you to do over and above what it is that you've said you're going to do. So think about why they would choose your organisation over and above Joe Public down the road. What's your unique selling point? What makes you better than them? What's your track record and past experience? If you're a new organisation or you've just set up a company, don't expect to be able to access 250,000 straight away, because if you've got no track record, quite a lot of funders won't put their trust in you, because they will feel that you are a risk to them to invest. And what do you or your organisation bring to this piece of work? What else is it that you've got that makes you fantastic and that you're going to do as a result of this work, that the funder's going to think, yeah, we want to fund them rather than X, Y, and Z down the road? And you know, and that really is the sort of thing that will make a great case for support, that actually being very clear on those different areas about what it is that you want the money for. And as I say, it only needs to be a couple of pages. It doesn't need to be War and Peace, but it then gives you the focus of, okay, for this project I'm looking at this, for that project I'm looking at this, for this service I'm looking at this. But it just gives you something that you can use, and that will actually help inform your fundraising strategy as well. Remember, your case for support got to be easy to understand. Anybody should be able to read it and understand it. So it should be in plain English, easily readable. It should be specific to what it is that you want. You should be able to evidence why it's needed. So, you know, any survey, statistics, text, copy, any validation, whether it's internal and external, to show that this is needed, and make it make it a document that, as I say, if it's War and Peace, if it's 10 pages long, it's just dry and it's boring. So it doesn't need to be that. It needs to be something that's very clear, very succinct and focused. And, you know, you can use your case for support internally if you're trying to go to a department head to get something from them and you want to showcase that why it's needed, or it could be externally if you're looking at a grant funder or an investor. So that's a whistle stop on case for support. Fundraising strategy. So a quick one on fundraising strategy. So where your case for support helps you form your product or your service into something that you can sell to others, whether that's internally or externally, the fundraising strategy is going to define where you want to get overall as an organisation. So it's going to be a strategy for the whole organisation that's going to tie in with your business plan, and it's going to be focusing on where you need to go to source and secure the funding and investment to enable you to do what it is that you want to do, that's obviously been put in your business plan. So business planning is a whole other session as well. What you don't want your fundraising strategy to be is woolly. You don't want to be seen to be chasing money. You want to be very clear, very focused, very defined about what it is that you want your organisation to do in the short, medium and long term, and the funding that you need to enable your organisation to be able to do that. So your most fundraising strategies actually are great when they tie in with your mission, your vision, your values, your business plan. It links in with your governance and the way that your governing body is working. It ensures that it fits with your wider strategic objectives. And it also shows how it supports your overall goals as an organisation. And once you're clear about what it is that you're doing as an organisation, then actually that should make your fundraising objectives pretty clear too. It should help for you to define where you're going to get certain funding from, because some of it might be related to a donor, or it might be that you're increasing membership, or you might be doing more community fundraising. Some of it might be setting up a friends of group for specific events if you've got that in your business plan. Some of it might be for a big capital project, which might be a mix of grants, social investors. So there's a whole range of things that you need to think about with your fundraising strategy. And the fundraising objectives should align very closely with your business plan and your business strategy. I'm just going to quickly have a look and see if there's any chat at the moment. Has anybody, oops, I'm going again. Has anybody got any, is there any questions that have come up? I'm trying to get the chat box. Let's have a look. So somebody's put here, when I try to apply to HF for the shutdown, 800 words to tell them everything. Yeah, Dave, it's a difficult one. It is really, really difficult. They're very good at the moment at actually giving you very, very tiny amounts of copy, and sometimes it's not even copy. They'll say you've got so many words, or they'll say you've got so many characters, and sometimes the characters and the copy don't marry. This is where it comes back to the filter and the focus stuff. You've got to be really, really succinct. I think at the moment you're going to struggle to have conversations, especially with the Heritage Fund, until things get sort of back to any sort of near normal in 2021, because the officers at the moment are still focused on recovery and focused on emergency, because they're all managing those projects and programs. But I think when they launch their new reopen their programs, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, you might have more chance to talk to people there. So yeah, I totally understand that. It is a difficult one. Which is why fundraising strategy internally and externally is really good for you to do, purely because it helps you to define where it is that you're going to get your funding from relating to the activity or the project or the program that you've listed within your business plan. And it helps you to define which funders are going to be the right funders, and also it'll highlight any gaps as well that you've got. But if you align that fundraising strategy to the business plan, and make sure that your objectives and your projects are aligned to the business plan, then you should be able to do a case for support for each of those individual projects, and then actually input that into an overall fundraising strategy, giving yourself a timescale of who you're going to apply for, who you're going to contact, what that money's, what's needed, where the evidence is, etc. And there are lots of things that you need to consider within a fundraising strategy. There's no one way to write a fantastical singing or dancing fundraising strategy. There are lots of different templates out there, and you know, if you want templates, let us know, because there are different things that you might be trying to address within your funding strategy, and you might just be doing a small one, which might only be looking at a couple of different things, or you might be doing a huge one. It's actually aligning with the whole of the business plan that you've got within your organisation, so it needs to be quite complex and quite comprehensive. So think about when you're also doing your fundraising strategy, you need to think about the different building blocks that you're going to need to have within the strategies to help you achieve everything. So have you got the right communications or IT infrastructure, branding, marketing? Have you got the right tools to measure impact when it comes to projects and programs? Have you got enough people resources to be able to look at funding applications or look at donor development with the right skills and the experience and potential? Have you got the right partners in place that you can go to, that you can start to look at collaborative working with? And have you got the right financial management systems in place as well? So all this sort of stuff you would put within your business plan, but it would also link in with your fundraising strategy as well. If I use an example about thinking about different things that you can do and how you can define different projects and programs. For example, if you've been running programs at the moment, and say you've had to repurpose some things like an educational package, and you might have repurposed it into a memory project. I know a lot of organisations have done memory projects. So then think about, okay, if you wanted to run a memory project with a different target audience, what is it that you would need to be able to develop that project, fund that project, and deliver that project? And that would go within your fundraising strategy. You'd look at all the different organisations and agencies that you could go to, or donors that you could go to help you develop that project and programme and deliver that programme. As I say, there's no one size fits all, and I say that about business plans as well. But you need to remember when it comes to your fundraising strategy is how much money do you need for everything, and how much money can you raise as well. So think about the need versus the want, and the timescale that you've got that in order to develop your projects and programs. So going back to the timescales with grant funders, what do you need the funds to pay for? Can you justify all the expenditure? Can you resource fundraising within your team if you've got a team, or is it volunteers that are going to be doing it? And think about the timescales for the money that you're wanting. So grant funder might be up to 6 months, major donor might be up to 2 years, sponsorship could be up to a year, legacy fundraising could be 1 to 10 years, depending on what it is that you're doing and how much you're wanting. And you need to factor all that into your fundraising strategy as well. So it's a very difficult strategy to say that I could give you all these different headings and they'd all work for your organisation, because they wouldn't. You could have a fundraising strategy that'd be 3 pages long and you just need to put X, Y, and Z in. Or if you're a larger organisation that's looking at bigger capital projects, it might be that it's a 20-page long fundraising strategy, and it's detailed down into different projects and different activities and services, and that would tie in with your case for support. So if anybody has got a fundraising strategy template that they use that works, share it on the chat function. If not, I have fundraising strategy templates that I use. The difference is you will need a different template because they're all different depending on your organisation. But what you need to think about is making sure that your fundraising strategy aligns with your business plan and what it is that you're wanting to achieve within your business plan. Use your case for support to inform your fundraising strategy. So again, very, very quick whistle stop on that one. Again, I'm mindful of time. So the next one is, which is the one you probably all wanting to know about, is, see if this works. It's not working at the moment. Here we go. Writing a successful bid. So if you see people that tell you that you can write a bid and it'll be 100% successful with their support, they're fibbing. There's no such thing. You can do a really successful application that addresses everything in the way that they should be addressed. It answers all the questions within the guidance, you fit the eligibility criteria, the timescales right, but nobody can guarantee you 100% success. And if they can, let me know who they are, because I'll use them. Because sometimes your bid can be absolutely fantastic and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just there's too many people applying for that fund. So, you know, what you need to think about when you're doing a successful bid is think about what it is that you want the money for. Again, going back to your case for support, use your case for support. Make sure that you find, filter and focus on the funder that you want. So making sure that you've got the right grant funder to suit what it is that you're wanting to develop within that funding bid. Make sure that you're reading the guidance and you fit the eligibility criteria. So read through all the guidance to make sure that you fit everything and make sure that the timescale's right for you. And understand that not one size fits all when it comes to funding, because there's lots of small pots of funding where it's literally, you can do a couple of sheets of A4 and get some funding, and that might be within a couple of weeks. You could go to a charitable trust and foundation, and that might be 6 months from trustee meeting. And again, that might just be a letter. Or if it's the usual suspects like Arts Council or Heritage Fund, then that could be an onerous form. I know things haven't been onerous with COVID, with recovery and emergency. They've been quite small forms with limited information, but you need to make sure that you fit it and you are eligible to apply for it. The case for support helps you define the different elements that you want in your project. So that should help you when you're writing your funding bid, because you've got all the foundations there within that case for support. And what you need to remember is just keep asking yourself the question, why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why is it important? And why should the funder support you? So what is it that you want to do and why should they support you? It's one of those things where different funders, like Dave just said, different funders and investors want information displayed in different ways. So, and they will have keywords and jargon words and buzzwords that they want you to use. But you can use the core information that you've put within your case for support to inform that application, but just make sure that when they've listed all their key outcomes or key priorities, that you're listing those and that fits within what it is that you're wanting to do and that you're aligned with that. As I say, some trusts and foundations will want you to just write a letter. Some organisations will want you to write a 30-page novel. I've even seen, I think it was an Arts Council application that was about 100 pages long. So make sure that you know how to prepare for a writing proposal so that you can respond to opportunities quickly and efficiently. I'm sure we've all got projects that are good to go at the moment. Remember that quite a lot of the massive open programmes aren't opening until April 2021. So now is the time to get your business plan in place, get your fundraising strategy developed, do your case for support for the different activities and the different services and things and projects that you're wanting to do. You need to understand whether or not you apply for that fund. How many of us have chased the funding just because it's there and thought we can fit ourselves into the funding criteria? Don't do that. And I think moving forward, even more so, don't do that. I know there's going to be an influx in April 2021 of applications for a whole range of things. There's going to be so much competition out there. So make sure that you're the best that you can be, and the funding pot that you're looking at is the right pot for what it is that you're wanting to do. Make sure you read the guidance, make sure you answer the questions and you don't flower. And if you've got a copy limit, make sure that you try and fit that copy limit, especially if it's an online application process. The joys of Grantium and other online processes where if you go over the character count and the copy count, it won't let you submit your application form. And make sure that you are writing concisely and succinctly about what it is that you want to achieve. When I talk about answering the flipping question, it's basically when you answer the questions they're answering, you need to answer the question that they want you to answer, not the one that you want to answer, or not the one that you think they want you to answer. It's making sure that you are answering all aspects of the question asked, and cross-checking with the guidance at the end. I said to you earlier, if a funder offers you the opportunity to talk to one of their officers before you submit, do talk to the officers. It comes back to that relationship and actually developing those relationships and that follow-on process. Use the appropriate and correct language that they want. Echo the funder's language and terminology. There's lots of different languages and lots of different terminology differences between cultural, creative, heritage and third sector and social enterprise sectors, so make sure that you're using the right one. Be specific and concise and don't waffle. And don't assume that they know who you are. Even if they do, personally, don't assume. When you're writing your funding bid, you're writing it to somebody that knows nothing about your project, knows nothing about your organisation and knows nothing about why they should fund you. Your application form should show them this is why you should support us, this is what we do, this is why we do it, and this is the evidence we've got to back it up. A lot of, some of the funds at the moment are being assessed nationally. And so you don't have that local relationship. So remember to make sure that you're writing your application as if somebody doesn't know you and doesn't already know what it is that you do. Simple things, make sure you check your spelling, make sure you check your grammar, make sure you check your copy count or your character count. Make sure you get somebody external to proof it. Get a critical friend to proof it. So if they understand it and they can see that it's a good application, then brilliant. But if they come back to you and say, well, actually, I don't understand what it is that you're wanting or why you're wanting it or what the funding's for, it's not clear, then you need to go back and review it. Be very careful when you're cutting and pasting. I know these are really simple things, but really do be careful when you're cutting and pasting and making sure that you've got the right name of the project or the organisation in there, and try not to repeat yourself. And use context to demonstrate wider relevance where you can, where you're looking at added value or wider outcomes impact. And highlight your skills, your expertise and your track record, and the fact that you can measure your impact. And if you've done a funding application, you've been doing it for 8 hours solid, walk away and then go back to it and then look at it and read it and see whether it reads right. But make sure you get that external proofing for it. We're hoping in the new year to be doing something around successful bid writing and looking at how you can make a really, really watertight case for a grant funder. As I say, I am rushing through this really, really quickly this morning, and I do appreciate and understand that. So I'm now going to move swiftly on to Caroline, and you'll be pleased that you're not listening to me anymore. So Caroline Sampson from the National Archives is going to now talk about the funds that they've got available. Caroline, do you want to tell everybody who you are and what you do, and then talk about the funds you've got?
Thanks very much. Delighted to be here. I always enjoy supporting heritage events, so great to see the interest in the topic. As Joe says, my name's Caroline Sampson. I'm the Development Manager, National and Networks at the National Archives. So just a few slides from me to give you a quick whiz around some of the support that the National Archives has available that might help you in your attempts to secure funding. So the first thing to say, of course, is that because we're the National Archives, our funds and our support are very much tailored towards those holding collections of archives. So if you had a project in mind that would be just around museum artefacts, for example, this is possibly not the fund for you. But if you have archives amongst your collections, this may well be of interest. So I've included a couple of URLs on this first slide, which Joe will be circulating afterwards, so you can follow these through. The first is our general page that talks about finding funding. So you'll find a number of different resources on there that might be of interest. It will tell you about the specifics of the grant funds that we offer. The second URL you should read in conjunction with the first, because in common with a lot of other grant funders at the moment, we've had to flex the way that our grant funds operate because of the pandemic. So the coronavirus link will tell you about adjusted timescales, a little bit more about what's going on in the current situation. So look at both of those in tandem. So the National Archives grant funds split into two main chunks. We've got Collaborate and Innovate and Archives Revealed. So Collaborate and Innovate comprises two separate grant streams. The first is called Archives Testbed. This is the one that will offer you a relatively small amount of money to test an idea that you've had. So, you know, when sometimes you come up with an idea and you think this is a bit wacky and it's a bit left field and I haven't seen anybody else try this, but it might just be what we need to solve a particular problem. Quite creative, quite innovative in its approach. If that's the situation that you find yourselves in, I would highly recommend having a look at the details for Archives Testbed, because that might be what you need just to give you the opportunity to try it without guarantee of success, but well worth a go. The second stream within Collaborate and Innovate is very much around encouraging the work of networks. So looking to make a difference to archives in the UK in collaboration with other people, which again is something that Jo touched upon in one of her earlier slides about that importance of partnership and collaborating. So it might be to set a new network up, it might be to extend the scope of an existing network, to make a step change in how that network operates. So those two grant funds, you'll find the information under Collaborate and Innovate. Archives Revealed, on the other hand, is looking very much more at specific collections. So the first tranche within that is cataloguing grants, and that will give you up to £40,000 to create catalogues of important archival collections. I think it's only fair to say that there's a lot of interest in this particular grant fund. It is competitive, so you'll need to be very clear about the importance and the significance of the collection that you're wanting to open up to an audience through an improved catalogue. But that can be a really important way of engaging new audiences and exposing a collection to a greater level of interest than you've been able to do before. The second one within Archives Revealed is almost a stage back from that. It's when you've got a collection of material and you don't really know what you've got. You know that there's some good stuff in there, but you can't really put in an application for a project or a catalogue. Because you don't know enough about it, you can't give it its best shot because you don't fully understand its significance or what it needs to take it to the next level. So a scoping grant will line you up with an archival expert who will come and have a look at your collection for you. They'll create an assessment report on the basis of that collection, and it will give you some expert advice on how you might manage that collection going forward, how you might develop the collection going forward. So I really like that grant stream. I think it's one that really does enable you to make a significant step forward. So do have a look at that if it's of interest. Next slide, please, Jo. That's lovely. Just building on what I said about the archives testbed, I did just want to draw your attention to the next round of that funding, round 6, which is around addressing representation in archives. This particular round has a deadline of the 25th of January next year, so you do still have an opportunity to get your bid together for this. The reason for including this was I know this is an area that a lot of people are looking at the moment. It's around supporting archive services who want to explore and test approaches to addressing issues of representation in archives. So it might be that you want to try and diversify your collection. It might be that you want to develop more ethnically diverse audiences and workforce, a creative reimagining of human-centered and equitable archive services, ethical collaborations or democratized decision-making. It's about revealing the hidden voices, about eliminating racist language in catalogues potentially, tackling stereotypes. So some really meaty issues in there that testbed round 6 is looking to address. So if that lines up with the sorts of issues that you're trying to progress at the moment, do take a look at that one. That one could be really good. Next slide, please, Jo. Thank you. So in addition to money, you will also on our website find some guidance and support that might help you in your fundraising endeavours. The first one that I've wanted to focus on is our updated guide to income generation. We updated the guide in 2019, and on the slide there, you've got both the PDF link so that you can actually download the guide and have a look through it. But above that, I've also included the URL for our generating income page, which will give you some signposts to other resources that might be of interest. I really like this guide because it's very logical in its sequencing. It takes you through a very logical journey through the fundraising approach. So it assesses your readiness. It tells you whether you're ready to start on this. It gives you a chance to understand what options are available to you, how you might make the case, how you deliver your plan, and where you might be able to get some help. So it's a good one to add to some of the resources that Jo's already talked about that just give you a chance to get started. Next slide, please. And then finally, we do offer training opportunities on income generation from time to time, and there is a webinar coming up either on the 3rd or the 10th of December, if that's of interest. I've given you the Eventbrite link there, so if you want to find out a bit more about what's on the agenda for those workshops, do follow that link and it will give you a bit more information. It's designed to give you an enhanced insight into the concept of creativity, a clear understanding of the process and technique you can implement within your service to enable creative income generation, and it will include a comprehensive resource pack with some templates as well. Enhanced skills in key areas of creative income generation. It helps you to improve your knowledge of existing income generation practices within the sector, and it does very much focus on real life challenges rather than just being a theoretical walkthrough. So do feel free to sign up to that if that's of interest. And that is a very quick gallop again through what's available from the National Archives, but I hope that's been of interest, and I'll hand back to Jo. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you, Caroline. That's been really, really useful. Thank you so much. Now, couple more slides, and then we'll break for 5 minutes so you can have a quick coffee. But you'll want to see this one. So hot off the press. So obviously, everybody at the moment is looking for what funding is out there that is not COVID related, though you may be looking for some more COVID related funding. Obviously, there's been the emergency funding and the recovery funding, as well as lots of other little pots floating around and other funding through Sport England, through Community Fund, through the Architectural Heritage Fund, etc., etc., etc. But at the moment, the Heritage Fund are reopening their small and medium open funds They're going to reopen on the 25th of November. I haven't got the guidance as yet, but their small funds are 3 to 10,000 and their medium funds are 10 to 100,000. What I do know is it's going to be concentrating on resilience, inclusion and cohesion, governance and income diversification. So looking at meeting community needs, heritage needs, health and well-being, and building resilience within your organisation. So it is still looking at the internal robustness of your organisation, but actually it's an open programme. It's going to be a rolling programme, so there's going to be no deadlines. The guidance will be updated soon, and as I would suggest, if you are on Twitter, make sure you follow the Heritage Fund on Twitter so that you get to find out when the guidance notes, or at least sign up to their e-shop so you find out when the guidance has been updated. In early February, around that time, they're going to open the 100,000 plus programme. So that will be for the major grants and the major capital works. Just so you know, there's not a huge amount of funding left for the small and medium open funds. It's the money that they've got left from their existing financial year. It's not massive, so there are going to be lots and lots of people applying for it when it opens on the 25th of November. So if you want to apply for it, I would suggest that you start looking at your case for support now and look at your fundraising strategy and look at it, what it is that you want to do. And then when the guidance comes out, you can see whether these funds and the new guidance fit with what it is that you want to do. If you are looking at big projects, if you had a project that was due to start this year but got stopped because of lockdown, my professional opinion and the advice from my contact at the Heritage Fund was, if it's not essential to do now, then wait until 2021 and wait so that you can plan your project properly. So if it is a massive capital one, then wait. The other funding that's out at the moment is the Museum Association in partnership with UK Research and Innovation and the Arts Humanities Research Council are offering a series of grants between 25,000 and 50,000 for one-year projects that support museums to explore digital innovation and to evaluate, refine and build on recent digital engagement. The new fund will enable museums and galleries to kickstart, scale up and evaluate the innovations they've so adeptly designed to connect collections to audiences through the COVID-19 pandemic. The closing date for that fund is the 21st of December. You've got to be an institutional member of the Museums Association to go for that. So go on the Museums Association website and look at this digital fund if you want, and if it's something you think might be useful for you. Arts Council were the first of the lottery funders that opened their project grants, their open programs. So they have got project grants that's open, and it's going to be up until April 2021. It's for 1 to 100,000. It is for individuals as well as organisations, and it supports a really broad range of type of activity. So it's looking at directly creating and delivering creative and cultural activity and content for audiences, visitors and digital users, and also looking at those that have longer term impact on strengthening the sector, such as organisational development, research and development and sector support. They're going to support a wide range of different applications from organisations and from individuals, and because of the circumstances during COVID-19, are particularly keen to support applications from creative practitioners, including time to think and plan, research and development activity, organisational development activity, and live activity that can be safely delivered within the period. So rather than activity that's going to have a start date that's really far in the future. 6-week turnaround for the under 15,000 applications and a 12-week turnaround for the over 15 applications, over £15,000 applications. The next one that I'm going to talk about is another Arts Council one just recently announced called Thriving Communities. It's a partnership between Arts Council and the National Academy for Social Prescribing, NHS England, Sport England, Natural England, Office of Civil Society, Money and Pension Service and NHS charities together. As you can see, there's a bit of an NHS, a health social prescribing element to it. So it's for £25,000 to £50,000, but you've got to provide 20% match. It's opening on the 23rd of November this year, and it's going to close on the 8th of January next year. And the decisions will be given on the 15th of March in 2021, and you will be expected to literally start straight away. It's a year-long program. That is it. And that's a year long from planning, developing and delivering. So it's pretty much a very short program. It's around social prescribing, social connectiveness, and it's designed to increase social connectedness and help communities cope with the impact of COVID-19. So it's looking at enhancing collaboration and networking between local organisations. It's looking at strengthening the range of social prescribing activities offered locally. It's looking at ways you can make partnerships and activities sustainable. You've also got to demonstrate a commitment to work with partner organisations. So there are some key eligibility criteria that you need to look at and you need to fit in order to apply for this fund. And it's only a small pot. It's 1.4 million, which sounds huge, you know, but it's not. That's for the whole of England. So it's only a small pot. But if you've done something like digital projects, or if you've done memory projects or health and wellbeing projects or community cohesion projects during the lockdown, think about this. This might be something that you could do. But please do look at the guidance notes on Arts Council England and the criteria, because you've got to link in with key partners for that. If anybody knows of any other funds that are out that are relevant to the sector at the moment other than these, yes, there are funds from local community foundations and small local funds, but these are just some of the big ones, and obviously the Heritage Fund is a key one for everybody. So I just wanted to raise those because they've got some opening, they're opening in November, and some of them are closing pretty swiftly as well. So now what I'm going to say to everybody is, this is a quick quiz for you to think about while you go and get your coffee. And it's just something that we're going to play, which is just a little bit silly. But if you go and come back, give yourselves 5 minutes, which is just enough time to go and put the kettle on, go to the toilet and come back, because we want to start. And then the next stage of this session is going to be pretty chilled out, because we're not going to be whizzing through so much information. Okay, see you in 5 minutes. Right, everybody, I think we've had 5 minutes. Hoping you're all back. Right, so these quiz questions, quickly just go through these, and it's just really to give you an idea about the different funding that we've talked about and what it's relevant for. So I'm just quickly. So which type of funding favours specific time-limited projects that are more often than not is restricted? So my response to that would be grant funding, because more often than not it is restricted, it's time-limited, and it's specifically project-based. The second one, which type of funding might you apply for if you were struggling to reach your financial target? Again, for me, that would be social investment. Because social investment sometimes is used as last brick finance to enable you to achieve your overall target for a project. So social investment there. The third question, which type of funding is specifically linked with developing relationships? Well, there's two really. I mean, predominantly donors and business investors, so sponsors and donors, but also that could be about grant funders as well. So making sure that you're developing that relationship. So your donors, your individual donors that are supporting you, and high wealth donors, but also grant funders, making sure that you've got a relationship developed with them. And then the final one, what is the best kind of funding to have in your income portfolio? All of the funding types, not just one, all of them. And I know it's not a perfect world, so it is very difficult, but what we all need to start thinking about is the opportunities for us to start to include more different types of income and investment within our organisations that will enable us to become more robust and financially resilient. Because if we're not financially resilient and viable, then we're going to struggle moving forward. And what we want to try and do is to have more unrestricted income coming in that allows us then to do the things that we can't get funding for, and enables us to be able to develop our organisations and diversify the work that we do within our organisations. So that was just a little bit of fun. So second part of the agenda is, don't you just love technology when it's not working? There we go. Right. So this is going to be a little bit more chilled out. It was a rush the first half, but again, you're going to get all the notes and all the slides for that. What I wanted to just talk about and touch on really again, because I usually do a day for each, is to talk about making the pitch and thinking about elevator pitches and having that picture in your head about the different projects and the things that you're doing. Talk about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding's been key, I think, over COVID. Lots of people have been doing lots of different things. Obviously, everybody knows about Sir Tom and the money, the over 30 million that he raised for NHS charities and the stuff that he did and the story that he had. So we'll talk a little bit about crowdfunding, and if you're thinking about crowdfunding, some of the things that you need to consider. Then a couple of crowdfunding case studies. Then I'm just going to do some general stuff, talk about going over the first part of the session, looking at the general things that you need to think about, the do's and don'ts, pros and cons, the whys and wherefores. And then I've got 3 sheets of useful information and support. Some of them are time limited and relevant, so I wanted to talk about them today, but others are just organisations like Caroline offered earlier, showing you support that TNA does. These are other organisations that are providing free support about different things. And hopefully then we might have some time for some final questions. But yeah, what I will do, as I said, with all of this is you will get this PDF, and on the final 3 sheets of the useful information, I will web link all the organisations, so it will take you to the relevant page. Okay, so don't worry about it now. I will web link it all, and you are going to get that post-webinar. So let's move swiftly on. So making your pitch, which I can imagine that quite a few of you are quite pleased that we can't see you and we're not doing face-to-face workshops anymore, because one of the things that I used to do when I used to do this workshop is we used to do an activity with everybody and they would develop their pitch during the session, during the day's session that we would do, and we would not make them, I would never force people to do it, but they would do their pitch. And this can be really difficult for a lot of people if you're not very good at doing this sort of stuff. But what I wanted to do now was just to talk about the things that you need to consider regarding a pitch. And because I think we all think pitching to an investor is really easy, and yeah, but have you all got your 2 minute or so elevator pitch ready? If, for example, you were in the lift with somebody that was very influential within whatever area you're working in, would you be able to talk to them in that lift and tell them why they need to invest or support you or your organisation? And that's the thing, that's what you need to think about. So again, thinking about the case for support that we did earlier, think about how you could have a pitch for the individual projects or activities that you're looking at, and think about why somebody would invest in you. So again, it keeps going back to the why, why. Keep asking yourself why. It's more than your mission statement. I mean, probably quite a few of you don't even know your mission statement off by heart. And that wouldn't be surprising. But it's about understanding your organisation and in a way that gets people excited and involved and thinking and wanting to be a part of what it is that you're doing. So you need to be able to pitch clearly and succinctly about whatever project or campaign or activity it is that you want somebody to listen about. There's lots of different ways. This is just one way of looking at it, is having that couple of minutes where you want to tell somebody about something that is really important to you. So use your case for support and think about the 5 whys within the case for support. So think about, why is your project important? Why should it be funded? Why should somebody support you? And why are you the best person to do the project? Your organisation, the best organisation to do the project? And why will their support make a difference? And what difference would that be? Because what you've got to think about is, what you don't want somebody to do is to say, so what? Which goes back to earlier. You want somebody to think, oh God, yes, I want to support you. That sounds really, really great. And it's also useful, if you've got that elevator pitch, it's useful to help you with bids and applications as well, because again, it condenses and clarifies things and focuses things for you. So it's a really useful tool to have. And the next slide is a little bit of a template that you can use that will help you develop that pitch for whatever project or activity it is that you're looking to develop. Use it to help you think about the arguments for why people should support you, why that project is important. But some other top tips on this. How you say it is just as important as what you say. So the tone of your voice and your body language. You want people to be excited about what it is that you're talking about and what you're saying, because if you're not passionate and excited about it, how do you expect them to be excited? So don't use a monotone voice and don't just stand still, but also don't go all jazz hands on them as well, because that might be a little bit too much. You want to be calm and professional, but you also want them to be able to see the passion in your voice and the passion in your body language when you're talking to them about why you want them to get involved and support you. Don't waffle. So shorter is better than longer. Again, going back to application forms, we've got to be concise about the copy. You need to be very, very clear and focused about what it is that you want to tell them within a very short piece of copy, and have that script and know it. So it's not a script per se. You're not reading off it. You're able to just tell somebody straight away, but it's something that you've learned. So depending on how fast you speak, no more than 220 words, 60-second, 2-minute pitch max. And what I would say is make sure you practice. Think about the hook as well. So think about, you want to grab somebody's attention, you want to give them a statement, or it might be a question where you're asking them something about, did you know about this? Or did you know, and you might have some stats that are relevant to that, to your pitch, but something that makes their ears prick up or makes them look at you and think, oh, I need to listen to this. It's the what's in it for me scenario. for people. So the benefit to them of investing in you or your organisation, what is that? That's what they need to hear and see, is what is the benefit for them investing in you? How is it going to make their life better, their organisation better, and what they do better by being aligned with and collaborating with you as a partner? Again, don't assume that they know anything about you. So assume that they don't. So again, explain very concisely and clearly, but assume that they don't know anything about you. Don't use jargon, don't use acronyms. Again, plain speaking so that they understand, and practice, whether that is practicing in a mirror or using Zoom, so talking to yourself on Zoom and practice in a mirror, then practice with people that you know and trust, your critical friends, your friends and family, to see whether they are give you constructive feedback. You would hope that they would give you constructive feedback. But yes, think about all those different things and how you want to talk to somebody and what it is that you want to get across them in the short space of time that you've got. Also need to think about who it is that you're going to be talking to. If it's going to be existing partners or contacts or stakeholders, it makes it slightly easier because it's a warm audience. Think about how well they know you as well. So again, how you approach what it is that you're going to say or who you're going to say it to is dependent on who it is you're talking to. If it's somebody you know, then it might be slightly different. If it's a new or potential investor or donor, then obviously you might change tack a little bit. And think about what their current priorities and values and mission is. And that is where the LinkedIn element comes in. Have a look at who these people are on LinkedIn, find out about them, find out about their organisation, find out about what their values are, what they are, what their organisational criteria, what they want to invest in. And the same with the funder. Do all that research. You need to do that background research before you actually go and talk to somebody, because what you don't want to do is to look like you don't know what it is that you're talking about and actually you're talking to the totally wrong person. Think about what it is that you want to get out of that elevator pitch. It might be that you just want to develop a relationship with a funder, so you just want them to know about the project, but be very clear about what it is you're going to achieve, so they can think, actually, yeah, that would make a good grant application. It may be that you're wanting to talk to a new investor or a new donor, so you have to do all that research, but think about what it is, the outcome that you want from that elevator pitch, from that conversation you have. And one of the other things that I would say is, if you're looking at a major donor or a major investor, do not automatically assume that they're going to hand over wads of cash, because as we said earlier, it can take up to 2 years for major donors for you to get from having that relationship started to actually them investing in your organisation. Not necessarily, but it can do sometimes. It's about building that relationship, developing that relationship. So you might start it with something else. It might be about them getting involved in your organisation or providing you with support, or you providing them with opportunities for their staff to volunteer with you. There's a whole host of things, but think about what the outcome is that you want when you're talking to the person that you're pitching to, and have different pitches for different individuals, for different activities. Again, short, succinct, clear, and be confident when you're doing it. So this is the template that you could use. So you could actually put this into a proper template and think about, why does your organisation exist? So what is your vision? What problem are you trying to solve? You know, what do you do? So you've told them about the need. You've told them about, you know, what you do to meet the need or solve the issue. And what you need to then do is tell them about how your organisation is going to make that difference. And then just focus on a couple of core impacts you have. Pick the ones that are going to appeal to your audience. Going back to research, research, research. Make sure you know who you're talking to and know what their alignment is, and make sure that you align with that, and what you're talking about is going to resonate with them. Also think about then, how do you do it? So what do you do to deliver on this change? So what activities are you going to carry out? What is it that you're going to do? Is it going to be an event? Is it going to be a project? Is it going to be an activity? Is it going to be an exhibition? And where do you want to go? What's your plan or vision for the next 12 months, 2 years, 3, 5? I think anything past 5 at the moment, even 3 might be difficult. But think about what it is that you're wanting to do within your organisation. Then look at what it is that you're aiming for. So why is this project, or why is your organisation worth supporting? It's that unique selling point again. What do you have that nobody else has? Why should they invest in you? What have you got that they need that will benefit them? And then what do you want? So you've decided what you want to achieve, and then you've just got to be brave, and you've just got to go and ask for it. I can remember talking to a colleague of mine a while ago who used to do high wealth donor fundraising for a big organisation, and he was saying that he got invited to a very, very nice garden party down south. And he went to the garden party just to basically have a nice time. There was no hidden agenda for going there. He'd not got anything sorted. He just went to meet people and network. And the first person that he met was a millionaire. And that millionaire had been at that garden party knowing that people were going to approach him and ask for money. So basically, he was just chatting away to this millionaire. And I don't know what he was chatting about, but it was just something, inconsequential. And they were just having a nice informal chat. And then the millionaire said to him, so how much do you want then? And this sort of flummoxed my colleague. It was like, oh, I don't know what to say. I've not got anything planned. And he did pluck a figure out of the air, and the guy went, yeah, that's great, fine, not a problem, I'll sort you a check out. That's not going to happen every time. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So when you're doing a pitch, do some of this work beforehand, so you know who it is you want to talk to, why you want to talk to them, what you want to ask them to support, and have an outcome from that. And you might not achieve the outcome every time, but if you've done this work and done this research, it's making sure that you've tailored everything then to the audience that you're approaching. I just think it's a really useful, gives you a few useful headings to use when you're thinking about it. So that's making a pitch. I don't know how many of you have made pitches to investors or donors, or whether any of you have got, a template that you use. If you have, again, put it in the chat box. Think about it. It's useful to think about because it helps you then focus on what it is that your organisation is good at. And again, you can use your case for support to inform it. It just helps you think about, okay, I want somebody to help me with X, Y, and Z. And this person would be brilliant at that. And it may be as well that you've got contacts within your board or within your volunteer base that actually know somebody that would be willing to get involved. How many times do you actually contact your board or speak to your board about them speaking to their wider contacts and friends and family? I know so many boards that have got some really high profile contacts and networks, but they just don't use them for the organizations that they're a trustee or a director of. And that to me is a waste, because what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to maximize on your internal networks first before you go out to external networks. So use your internal networks as your sounding board, as your critical friends, your friendly audience first, and go and ask your board, have your board got any good connections? Go and ask those people who they know, and actually, would they be interested in investing in X, Y, and Z? Don't forget about that. Think about what you've got internally before you go externally, because I'm sure quite a few of you, if you did a bit of a stakeholder analysis, would have quite a substantial network of influential individuals, whether that's wealthy or just influential within business. And so do think about that. So that's the making the pitch. There's no one size fits all. It's dependent on who you're approaching and what it is that you want them to invest in, but always remember the what's in it for them, the what's in it for me. You want them to think that you are helping them by them investing in you or supporting you. It's the benefit to their organisation. Now, this again can be sponsors. I've got sponsor templates that I use, which basically talks about the benefits that their organisation will get from investing in us, whether that's for an event, a conference, or passive. I always do it from the sponsors and the investors' point of view, not ours, because it's about what they're going to get from it, whether that's an increased target market audience, whether it's going to be increased health and well-being with their staff because they're involved in a heritage organisation that they might like and align to, and it, you know, and it might be increased income because if you've got them as a sponsor or an investor and they're on your website, their headings on there, their links on there, they may get more customers. But there's a whole range of things to think about, and again, that's a day session. It's not just a quick whistle stop tour. So quickly, I'm going to move on. So crowdfunding is a quick one here. So quite a few people have been crowdfunding, obviously, over the lockdown because they've not been able to access funding or their income's gone down dramatically. So therefore, they've had to look at other ways and means of generating income. And online has been a major one for donations, whether it's been through Just Giving or whether it's been through crowdfunding platforms. So I don't know how many of you have looked at doing crowdfunding. What you have to think about when you're talking about crowdfunding is it has to be usually based around a specific project, a specific time, and a specific goal. And that's what a crowdfunding platform will give you, a designated amount of time to raise a certain amount of money for a certain project that you're wanting to achieve. I know this is sort of, this has changed during COVID and people have been just funding generally to stay alive, but the norm is this: specific project, specific time, specific goal. And crowdfunding dates back hundreds of years, by the way. I think it was 1700s sort of crowdfunding type initiative started, and it was the Irish Loan Fund, and that was when crowdfunding starts. And then if you fast forward now to 2020, you've got lots of different organisations now that use crowdfunding platforms, all to support financial viability over the past 8 months, and also organisations still using it now for specific projects. So what you need to think about when you talk about crowdfunding is what kind of crowdfunding do you want to do? Do you want to just do donation crowdfunding, which is a typical style for charities where they give and feel good? So donate to us, thank you, and this is what we do. And it might be £5 will allow us to do X, £10 allows us to do Y, £20 allows us to do Z. It might be rewards, so you would incentivize people that are donating to your crowdfunding platform by giving them something in return for them investing in you. I've done this for a local crowdfunding platform that happened last year, and I invested an amount of money which meant I got a reward back from the person, which was great because you're buying something off them, and you might just be paying a little bit more in the donation. Loan, so that might be equity, loan and equity crowdfunding. So crowdfunding for business, donor gets an equity stake, Dragon's Den, think about that sort of thing. And people giving loan funds collectively to a business as well. So think about the type of crowdfunding, if you are looking to do it, what type of crowdfunding is going to suit you, because not all will suit everybody. Things that you need to consider. So the tools and features. Has the platform you've chosen got the right tools and features that you need for your campaign? Will it help you manage donors? Are you able to link to other social media platforms, etc.? So you need to think about something that's going to give you the flexibility to do what it is that you want to do. So make sure you've got the right platform. Fees. Do they charge fees? So that's the other thing, is check out what platforms are charging fee-wise, and also whether they've got a time limit on when you've got to achieve your target funding. Quite a few platforms will charge. Some of the funders have actually liaised with some crowdfunding platforms to do one-off things. But yeah, quite a few of them do charge fees. And if a platform says it's fee-free, just check that it's the right platform for you to use. Make sure it's a high-quality platform. Are you going to be doing this for ongoing support, or is it a one-off? If you've got unlimited time to raise money, or are you got a specific amount of time to raise money for a specific project, make sure you've got your plan ready, because if you haven't got a plan for your crowdfunding platform, then you're going to struggle to succeed. You need to make sure that the platform that you're using and the plan that you've got is going to enhance your brand, enhance your credibility, and allow you to gain the most people investing in your crowdfunding appeal. So you need to make sure that you're choosing the right platform to engage with the right type of donor. So for example, some platforms are sector specific. So Kickstarter is specifically for creatives. And think about the type of company running the platform. Is it a social enterprise? Is it a charity, or is it a private company? Or does it matter? Are you not bothered? So you have to, there's a whole range of things to think about before you even start your crowdfunding project. These are a few examples of crowdfunding platforms. So there's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo, there's Crowdfunder, there's Crowdcube, Razoo, Global Giving, and Just Giving. We all know about Just Giving because quite a few people use Just Giving for a whole range of things, and Sir Tom being one of them. So when you're choosing your platform, think about where the audience is, the type of project that you're wanting it for, and all or nothing versus you can keep it all models. So some of the platforms will allow you to keep the money even if you don't hit the target, some of them won't. So you need to think about that. Just for info, this was before lockdown. Most crowdfunding campaigns fail, but that's because people don't plan. You need to plan so much beforehand before you actually launch your crowdfunding appeal. 43% of Kickstarter campaigns succeed. Only 1 in 10 reach their target on Indiegogo. Average successful crowdfunding campaign currently before lockdown was around 7,718, and campaigns that gain 30% of their goal within the first week are more likely to succeed. The one thing that you need to do is try and get all your friends and family to invest. So as soon as you launch, you've already got 30% of the money that you need, if possible, towards your project, because you've done all that legwork beforehand. Because as soon as people see that up and see that it's only been launched today and there was already 30% investment, then actually you're more likely then to want to donate and invest in it. And also think about the different platforms that you use to promote it through social media. So if anybody has used or done a successful crowdfunding campaign, can they put it down in the chat and let us know? And if they'd be willing to share information about what it is that they did to achieve their targets, that'd be really useful. Or even if you didn't and it wasn't successful, that'd be, you know, that helps as well. All this sort of stuff helps us. It's learning, and we're all learning. So make sure you've got a good digital platform to host, a good idea worth funding, a compelling message, the crowd that's going to want to invest, a communications plan for your crowdfunding appeal, lots of engaging content because you're going to need to provide updates on a regular basis, whether that's through social media, on the crowdfunding platform, on your website, etc., on e-shots, and help. You can't just do this on your own. You're going to need a team, and that's either staff and or volunteers and people that will be your champions for that crowdfunding appeal. So again, making sure you've got an audience. Visuals are brilliant. Videos are great. Make sure you put it up on your website. Make sure you do perks and rewards if you can, pictures, testimonials, multiple ways to contact you. So not just by email, but actually contacting you on social media, etc. The right ask and the right length of time and updates. All this is really, really important in order to make your crowdfunding campaign as successful as possible. So before you start, think about what it is that you want to crowdfund for. Is the idea a good idea? Are you solving a problem? Again, case for support, keep saying case for support. Is there a tangible outcome? Have you identified your network? Is there a compelling story to tell? Do you have the capacity to do this well? And if yes is the answer to all of that, then you consider crowdfunding. Simple, isn't it? This is an example, and I'm not going to click on the video, but this is just something. It's called Wild Finca, and it's a couple that were crowdfunding for a piece of land in Spain. And basically they got 20,000 target, and it was to buy some land. They've already owned some land, but there was a parcel of land at the side of it, and the farmer who owned it was going to sell it off. So they basically wanted to buy that land off him, and they got first refusal, but they needed to raise £20,000. So they had a £20,000 target. The page ended on the 31st of October, and they had rewards from £1 to £5,000. 557 supporters, and they raised £21,717. So they did it, but they had a celebrity supporter. Chris Packham was supporting them and promoting them massively throughout all his channels. So again, think about who it is that you can get to support you. They raised the money, they managed it, they did it, but they put a lot of effort and time into it to do that. The other example is the National Video Game Museum, a museum that was really struggling during lockdown and actually was at risk of going under. And so these guys decided, right, enough's enough. We need to do something drastic. So they went on and crowdfunded, and they were initially looking at £80,000, which would help them go through the first lockdown. They managed to raise £201,000, £156. It was a huge crowdfunding campaign. There was loads of effort put into it. They got global interest, but it was they had to put the time and effort into it to make sure that they could keep maintaining the momentum on it. But it paid off, and I think, you know, if you've got something in mind that you want to do and you think it's gonna interest people, then actually crowdfunding can be a really good way. And it also then engages you with a new audience that you've got, which you can then possibly convert to regular donors. So think about that. You know, if you've got 810 supporters that they'd never engaged with, well, say 50% of those they'd never engaged with, they've got 50% audience now that they can engage with to look at new things that they're doing and engage with, because they've got all their information. They can email them, send them e-shots, get them invited to different things. There's a whole range of opportunities, not just the finance side of things. So I'm going to shut up about crowdfunding now and move on to general. So just generally now, as we're coming to the end, the world we're fundraising in has changed considerably. So do think outside the box. But being innovative does not necessarily mean something new. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look at what others have done. So, you know, everybody here today, you have all done different things during lockdown. So actually, by sharing your knowledge, expertise, your contact details, you can help each other and look at things that you might be able to share and people might be able to basically do themselves and take on board. Most fundraising is built on relationships. It is. People buy into people. They don't buy into things or objects. They buy into you as an individual or people within the organisation. Try and consider all fundraising options if you can. Be personal and appreciate and value all your supporters. Humanise your project. As I've said, people by people, and think about the what's in it for me question when you're talking to investors or grant funders. What's in it for them? They want to fund the best project possible, so you need to think about it from their perspective. Plan constantly, always plan. Think about that. And if you've got time now, if you've not got everybody furloughed, if you have got time, now's the time to think about revising plans and looking at planning for 2021. ATFQ, answer the flipping question when it comes to funders. Use traditional, digital and social media to promote your projects and secure support. Your website, social media accounts, local TV, radio, newspapers, everything. So make sure you've got a marketing plan as well. Look at marketing and how marketing is intertwined with fundraising. Marketing should be like a stick of rock that goes through the whole of your organisation and should be used for every aspect of the work you do, because marketing and communication is key. Don't reinvent the wheel. Talked about that. Look at what other people have done and use that as models of best practice. With grants, look at what previous recipients, grant funders have had. Talk to them if you can. Talk to the funders. Major donors, make sure you do your research, whether it's an individual or an institution, so that you align with their vision and mission. Sponsorship, the what's in it for me scenario. Why would somebody sponsor you over and above another organisation? And again, look at the sponsorship packages that are around. Has anybody got a sponsorship package that they use? Does it work? Why does it work? Why do you think it works? As I say, I've got a sponsorship template that I use, but I do tailor it depending on who I'm talking to. Contracts, don't oversell yourself on contracts. Only put in what it is that you think you can achieve for the amount of money that you think it's going to cost. Do not overegg yourself on that. Social investment, don't dismiss it. Really don't dismiss it. Think about it. Even if it's a small organisation, look at what it is that you're doing as an organisation. Are you generating income from doing some trading or some activity? And could social investment help you to develop and diversify? So my main tips are talking to others who've been there, done it, worn the t-shirt. Talk to your funder or investor. Make sure you do that research and find out about them. Don't chase money for the sake of chasing money, which I know is easy to say considering the circumstances that we're in, but try and plan and look at where it is strategically and focus that you want to go, and what it is that you want the money for. So these are the useful things. I'm going to stop just to see if there are any questions. And these are the useful things that I'm actually going to link for you. Let's have a quick look on here, and then we'll I'll just have a quick look. I can't see anything, and I'm sure Fran will email me if she's got anything. So on the useful things, make sure you use social media, please. Make sure you look at e-shots and newsletters that you've got coming in, and sign up to things that are really, really useful. Look at Arts Council, look at Esme Fairburn, look at local community foundations for funding and funders and Heritage Fund. Look at Funding Central. Now this is one that all of you could go for. The Directory of Social Change have got an effective fundraisers book for £1 plus £1.75 postage. It's a hard copy. You could all get that. Basically go onto the DSC website and put in effective fundraiser book, and you will see there's an option there to buy the physical book for £1 plus postage costs. So if you're looking at fundraising and how to be an effective fundraiser, you could actually get a practical book there for £1.76. I've ordered it, so you could do that. There's iDocs Grant Finder when you're looking at funding, search engines, Heritage Fund Directory, Community First Yorkshire, Community Matters Yorkshire, Grants Online, and also you've got Sporting Heritage has got its own funding search engine if you're a member of Sporting Heritage. And if not, why not? You know, sign up, become a member, and sign up to the eShots fund that Sporting Heritage has as well. There's a whole range of other things that I could talk about here, but I haven't got time. I've got lots of toolkits and templates, which I'm going to talk about in the Survive and Thrive webinar that I'm doing on the 3rd of December. So if you want to sign up to that, please do. As I say, there are lots of different ways for you to find out why the funding is out there, but these are just a few of them. And moving swiftly on, the next one, these again, I'm going to link all these. So these are useful organisations that have useful websites and useful free information and templates. So NCVO, the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, which represents the charity sector, have got a know-how non-profit platform which provides lots of free advice and support. NAFCA, which is the National Association of Voluntary and Community Action, which I mentioned, they have a links eShot, Small Charities Coalition, and UK Community Foundations, which will tell you where your local community foundation is based. Nesta is the National Endowment for Science, Technology and Arts. They usually have some useful stuff around digital. Then we've got funders in there, Arts Council, Heritage Fund, should have changed that, it says HLF, that's wrong. AIM, Association of Independent Museums, Museums Association, and your local museum development network should provide you with some really useful stuff. There's lots out there at the moment. Some social investors there, Charity Bank, Key Fund, Architectural Heritage Fund, Local Government Association have got their Culture Hub, and Heritage Alliance, Arts Professional. There's so many. I just want to mention Course 4 and Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy, because they're currently offering free power hours with their consultants. And they also have the Heritage Compass programme, which is free support for heritage organisations. And the next round closing date for that is the 16th of December. So you can check out the Course 4 website for further information on that. And obviously we'll be sending this out with the links, so you'll be able to do that. They also have a page on the Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy website, which gives you lots of information about funders and the funding that's out there at the moment. and it's titled under How Are Funders Helping the Health Crisis. So again, I will send you that, so you'll have that link. And then finally, there is a Rebuilding Heritage programme, which is a support programme that's open on the 26th of this month. It's a new programme funded through the Heritage Fund, and it's providing one-to-one and group support to heritage organisations, opening on the 26th of November, closing on the 16th of December. Again, I will put the link out so you can have a look at that to see whether you would be eligible to apply. If you are interested in looking at your governance and also roles and responsibilities of your board, the Trustees Commission have got, the Charity Commission, sorry, have got 5-minute guides for trustees. The Ecclesiastical Insurance organisation has got a charity fundraising hub on their website at the moment with lots of free resources. I have also got access to, if you're interested, an online book called Trustees and Practical Fundraising, which is really, really useful for you to pass on to boards about fundraising and their roles and responsibilities. There are resources for Heritage Digital, workshops, events and support. There's a fund mapper from Good Finance, but that's more around social investment. The Audience Agency has got lots of resources, Bounce Forwards, which provides you with lots of different resources, events and workshops and advice. The Cranfield Trust has got a financial management toolkit. And I've put Alva in there because I just love Alva on Twitter. They provide you with lots of information and advice about a whole range of different things. So I appreciate that I have run through this so incredibly quickly. I will link all these so you've got all that. But are there any questions? Because I know we've gone over by 5 minutes and I've been going so quick. Is there anything? Has anybody got any questions, or has everybody just gone brain dead now because I've just run through that so quickly? As I say, I will link all of this so that all the information you've got will be clickable links when you get the PDF. My slides have also got notes attached to them, so you will get that PDF, so it will give you all that information and give you all those notes. And if you are interested in the Trustees and Practical Fundraising book, please let us know either on the chat function now or through Fran or myself on my information, my contact information, which is at the bottom of the slides. I'm trying to think of anything else and I can't think of anything else. So I'm going to stop this screen share and just say, please do, you know, if you want to contact me about further, then please do. As I say, I do appreciate that I've gone through this so quickly. We have got another webinar on the 3rd of December, which is Survive and Thrive. So there will be more information there about recovery and reopening information. But I'd just like to say thank you for your time and thank you for sticking with me while I've been running away like a very quick train on this. These sort of funding sessions I do over a day, and I know Fran and I have discussed about doing these in 2021, sorry. So hopefully we will be able to do some in more detail in 2021, which might be a little bit more useful for you. And obviously Caroline's told you about other sessions that she's doing as well, that TNA are doing, that will be useful for you as well. Anybody got anything else? Fran, do you want to say anything? Caroline, do you want to say anything? I am mindful I've gone 8 minutes over.
Caroline, any closing comments for you before I wrap up the session?
No, just to say thank you very much for your interest and keep in touch.
Lovely. Well, I'd like to thank Caroline and Joe for today's presentation. A lot of information to get through, and there'll be a bumper post-session resource coming your way. Do contact me if there's anything that Joe has or Caroline have mentioned that you don't get in your wrap up. There will also be quite a detailed evaluation picking up on what Joe was saying about looking at elements of this presentation that we could develop into more bespoke training. So if there are particular aspects of funding and fundraising that you're interested in, please complete the evaluation because that will help us shape our training in the future. So I think that leaves it for today. There's one final webinar which Jo mentioned, which is the Survive and Thrive in a Post-COVID World, which is at the beginning of December. All the details are on the Sporting Heritage website, and I'll pop them in the wrap-up as well. And there's a couple of hangouts coming up as well if you're interested in either learning or memories. So anyway, all the details on the website, and they'll be in the wrap-up and the newsletters. So thank you very much for your time today. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much.